Trade talks are escalating as NHL Insiders reveal that Trevor Zegras has hit the trade block, with a contending team in the West being linked to the Star. We're going to break all this down and more later on this episode. Before we get into that, we're so close to 11,000 subscribers. If you guys are enjoying this daily NHL content, it could be on the Anaheim Ducks, the Colorado Avalanche, or whatever your team is, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date on everything around the league. But with that, Darius, we gotta hop straight into the first topic today, where we got huge reports coming from Elliotte Friedman and other insiders revealing that the Colorado Avalanche may be in on Trevor Zegras. We see Elliotte Friedman in his 32 Thoughts podcast say, I had one executive who told me he'd like the Avalanche to trade for Trevor Zegras. This sparked Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period to continue on and say the Ducks will continue to listen, and if the right kind of package comes into play, they'll pull it. He's still available. He's not taking the rebound type season that he or the Ducks anticipated. They only thought he would kind of get back to near 70-point type pace. He hasn't gotten to that level yet, and that may push things until summer, but it's no secret that Anaheim is willing to listen on Trevor Zegras' offers. Now, looking at this, what's your initial thoughts? Because my biggest thing is, looking at Trevor Zegras, I always thought he would come in, be the face of the Anaheim Ducks team, but now it does seem from reporters that he might be on his way out.
I think that's a great point, that I think we all thought maybe that this was the next face of, when they were rebuilding the Anaheim Ducks, this new era of Anaheim Ducks hockey. And it hasn't gone that way at all, except for maybe the first or second season he was in the league, right? And obviously doing the flip passes and the Michigans and all that. And that's all fun, but it hasn't really translated to point production or him being an elite player in this league. And I do wonder, he is linked now, loosely, I guess, at this point through that executive, which is a pretty crazy quote in itself, by the way. One executive told Elliotte Friedman that he would like to see the Avalanche trade for Zegras. I wonder what that means. I wonder if that's another Western Conference exec. But anyway, him being traded to the Avalanche and being linked to the Avalanche, I wonder if he would, do well with some more structure. Like if he was in an organization and a team that was more disciplined, more structure, had aspirations of a Stanley Cup, that this guy would straighten it out and become the player that he can be, because he's just kind of floundering around there in Anaheim. They haven't had much, the last couple of years since he's got there. They haven't put, any good teams together, really. He doesn't have much help either for the type of player that he is, because, he's relied upon to score there. And I don't think he's an elite goal scorer by any means, right? I think he's more of a playmaker and that type of player. And yes, he's flashy, right? But maybe he can clean up his defensive zone coverage as well, and some of his defensive game in a place like Colorado with more structure, where again, there's more discipline. They have aspirations of going for a Stanley Cup. So I think it's a very interesting match there. I wonder what comes back the other way, but I feel like, it's come to a head here in Anaheim as well, because he's been there for a while. They haven't built a team around him or really any of their other young stars either. So it might be time to move off of him, because again, if you look at the contract there, making quite a bit, he's got 1 year left. Could be time to move off of him.
And I mean, the biggest thing is, looking at Zegras, we did see him have productive seasons just 2 years ago. But the biggest thing is, since then, he's been dealing with injuries. The Ducks, like you said, haven't been able to really get into any kind of mojo, it seems like. So having Zegras there with their young core doesn't seem like it's fitting too well. This is still a salary cap that a team can take on. 5.7 with the cap skyrocketing is a good fit. But looking from the Avs side, I do think getting Zegras into this team would bolster that top six so much. You could put him into the second line. You can put him on the top line with Nathan MacKinnon if you wanted to. This is a team that does have salary cap 4.7. The closer you are to the deadline, the lower the cap hit is for Zegras. So fitting him into this team, like you said, this is a team that wants to be a contender. They want to win another Stanley Cup. We've heard that Nathan MacKinnon pushes every player on this team to be their best, and I do think that would benefit Zegras quite a bit. But looking at this roster, do you think it would make sense for the Avs to be like, hey, we're going to move out maybe a roster player, a pick, a prospect to acquire this guy? Or if you were the Avs, would you be more of, hey, we're not really interested at the moment, let's revisit this in the offseason?
I think that, maybe revisiting it in the offseason would make more sense, I guess, logically. But heading into the playoffs and considering the move that they just made, moving off of Rantanen, you could use some help there in the top six, like you said. And he could possibly, Lehkonen, has been great, But what if you put Zegras on the left wing there with McKinnon? Like that might be fantastic, right? Those are two guys that can probably feed off of each other and have some great chemistry going and score some goals, right? So I think that it's a very interesting option there. And again, if you look throughout their lineup, yeah, they could use maybe one more piece as they head towards the playoffs here. Everyone's been playing well. They're a great team for sure, but I think they could use one more piece. And Zegras is a great player. And like we were just talking about, right? If you put him into an organization and a team that has more structure, and you put him with a guy like Nathan McKinnon that doesn't take any BS, right? Like he might be able to turn things around. And I think that it could be a good fit for him. And for Colorado too, again, like the price might be lower right now. A lot of people are not too high on Zegras as they were a couple of years ago. He's been dealing with injuries, all of this. So maybe now is the time to acquire him, right? Rather than waiting or, what have you, trading for him before. Getting him right now could help you going into the playoffs because it does look like he'll return it and finish the year. But again, it's a very interesting, he's just all offense. He's just all offense right now. He has to clean up the other sides of his game. And I think that Colorado could be a place where he can do that. So it's a very interesting option. A lot of people forget he's only going to be 24, still a very young player in this league. Maybe a change of scenery could do him good, could do the Avalanche good because again, maybe just one piece off of being real contenders again this year. And I think it's a very skilled player. And I feel like if you put him in the system, maybe he can turn things around and add some things to his game as well.
And I mean, the biggest thing is looking at this Avs team, they're not afraid to use the salary cap. We've seen them go out and make multiple trades. As you said, moving on from Rantanen to bring in Nikas, this was a just scratcher when it looked at it. No one expected something. We've seen them go out and acquire Mackenzie Blackwood to fix the goaltending problem. Scott Wedgwood, they have a complete new tandem. This is a team that's not afraid to make moves to make Nathan McKinnon in the position to win another Stanley Cup. But from the Duck side, looking at this young core, down the middle, and Zegras is not great at faceoffs. I believe it's 37% this year. But down the middle, you have a lot of people. Leo Carlsson is a guy that can play down the middle. McTavish. There's so many names on this list that play the center position or wings that are younger. And yes, Zegras is still young. Do you think maybe they might look at this and say, hey, we're going to move on from him. Maybe we get a roster player that we can flip in the future. We'll get more draft picks. Once those draft picks get to the league, we'll finally be hitting the contending window. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. Or do you think keeping Zegas to grow with the team would be better?
I think that it's reached in terms of Anaheim side of things, I think that it's reached a boiling point, honestly. Like, I don't think it's going to work anymore just because of the way the team is. Where they are in everyone's development, where he is in his development. I feel like they should have been at the point now where they were contending and they were all growing up together. And I mean, again, I just said he was young, but I mean, he's been there since he was 18. And obviously now, 23, 24, you would have hoped that you're at least maybe not a contending team, but a competitive team. And it's not looking like that. So I feel like everything's kind of passed them by at that point. Maybe it's time to move off of him. They still have great young talent. Like you said, lots of draft picks that they can start to develop again and maybe start over. Mason McTavish is a good young piece. Obviously, Leo Carlsson, they just picked high in the draft a couple of years ago. So they have a lot of really good pieces still. But I think that it's time in terms of Trevor Zegras and where he is in his development with the Anaheim Ducks. It's probably time to move on because I feel like he's only going to add other things to his game, through another team, through another organization. It's gotten stale in Anaheim. So I think for both parties, maybe it's time to move off of him. We've seen it with a lot of different players too, like Capo Caco in New York. Got very stale, wasn't producing a lot, goes over to Seattle, one of the best point producers for them, right? Because he is a great player. You just have to unlock them a little bit and add some more into their game. So I think that's pretty much the only way I think that this ends for the Anaheim Ducks.
But I mean, looking at this, Avs fans, would you like to bring in Trevor Zegras to this team? And as a Ducks fan, what would you like to get in return for your former star that honestly looked like the franchise? Also, sick mullet, love it. But with that, that'll be it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed this, make sure to go down and leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, my co-host, Darius, and take care.